Hey everyone, welcome to another Opening Traps episode, and today I want to play through a position against the Caro Kann. And the Caro Kann occurs after e4 c6, and this is actually a really good defence for black and really annoying to play as white. But I uncovered something maybe about 10 plus years ago that's actually quite a nice variation to play if you play the two knights against the Caro Kann. So the two knights is knight c3, black plays d5, and white plays knight to f3. And we get into a Caro Kann two knights variation. And typically here, black usually plays bishop g4, and white in many games plays h3, with bishop takes knight and queen takes bishop. Very dry. I think it's quite boring. However, I actually uncovered quite a nice move here for white after bishop to g4. Now it's not a forced line, but it's rather interesting. And the move is just to play this move, 4d4. And the point is that black's eyes are supposedly going to lighten up here because they think they might be able to double white's pawns or win a pawn themselves. So we're hoping that black plays pawn takes pawn here. And after knight takes pawn, we're hoping they play bishop takes f3, because this looks like black's going to win a pawn or double the f-pawns. And we sacrifice a pawn here by playing queen takes f3. And after black takes this pawn, queen takes d4, white's actually in a much better position already. We can play the move bishop to e3, and after maybe black plays queen takes b2 and gets really greedy, we can set up this position, bishop c4, and start harassing black's position. The point is, after black plays moves like knight to f6 and white can castle, white's got a major lead in development. For instance, if queen c2 here, there's moves like queen to f5. But we'll go through these in a bit. But that's the introduction to this d4 idea anyway. So let's go through that again. So we play e4, black plays c6, we play knight c3, there's d5, the two knights variation, bishop g4, and I'm recommending this move, d4. Sort of sacrificing the centre pawn. Now, it should be noted that black doesn't actually have to go into this variation, so they don't have to take the knight or the pawn. Many times black could just play a solid move here like e6, very boring. And if this happens, just continue as normal, bishop d3 for instance, bishop takes knight, queen takes, pawn takes e4, knight takes. In this position, again, black could play knight to f6 or queen takes d4. If queen takes d4, again white gets a nice position with bishop to e3 for instance, queen takes b2 and castles. And we see here, again in this position, white's got a major lead in development. They've got all the pieces out, they're castled safely. And sacrifice two pawns, but white's got an immense attack coming. For instance, rook b1 here, or just knight to g5. We're attacking this f7 pawn. And this is a very nice position for white to be in and has lots of attacking potential. Again though, after bishop to g4 and d4, black doesn't have to take. Knight to f6 is probably the most common move that I've seen. If this occurs, you can play h3. Again, bishop takes, queen takes, pawn takes e4. And in this position, it's recommended just to play queen to e3 and defend your pawn. Otherwise, you're just losing material. And after you play queen e3, after e6, you can calmly take the pawn back. Knight takes, queen takes, and probably queen d5, and this is probably an equal game with the queens off the board. So you can still fight for a win here, but it's probably not as good as the variations we're going to cover. So we'll go back to it. We're going to uncover this trap now with d4. Again, like I say, if black takes on e4, we'll take with the knight. There's bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and this is the line we're going to cover now, queen takes d4. Now I uncovered this line maybe about 10 plus years ago when I was using a Fritz engine, and suddenly the valuation just suddenly peaked and was really good for white even in this position. And the key move here is to always play bishop to e3. So we're attacking the queen, and now we're forcing black to make a decision. The queen has to move again, and we're going to go through the lines where the queen moves to different positions. So there's several options here. Black could play queen takes b2, which we'll look at again. There's queen d7, there's queen d5, black can play queen b4 check, or just move the queen all the way back to d8. But first then let's cover Let's go queen b4 check first. This seems like quite a nice one. So if check, I recommend playing c3. We'll block it, attacking the queen again. And probably black will probably take now queen takes b2. They are attacking the rook on a1 after all. And if this happens, just play rook to d1. We've got a nice centralised rook. And now we've got the queen and the knight coming into the game. Also bishop c4 is coming with so many attacking pieces in the game straight away for white. And here if black plays, let's say queen takes a2, takes another pawn, guards the f7 square. But black comes under a lot of pressure now. We play queen f4. The point is we want to play queen c7 followed by rook to d8 checkmate. And black's got a few moves here. I looked at a few here with knight to d7 for instance. If this happens, we can play queen c7 anyway. The rook and the queen are attacking the knight. And if black defends with knight to f6, we can play knight takes f6 check. Again, the queen and the rook are attacking the knight. So after knight takes f6, there's queen takes b7, are attacking the rook on a8. Rook d8 is the only move. And then comes queen c6 check. And after knight to d7, we can play rook takes d7. The point being is if rook takes d7, then there's queen c8 with check. The rook has to block, and then we finish with bishop b5, checkmate. Going back a few moves, there's one way to avoid this with f6, but even so, rook takes a7, discovered check, and white will pick up the queen. So let's look at this again. There's queen b4, we play c3, there's queen takes b2. As I say, we play rook d1 to get the open file, and after queen takes a2, we play queen f4 again, threatening queen c7, rook to d8, checkmate. We looked at knight d7 in this variation, but there's also several others. There's queen a5 here to defend everything. This is probably the only other move that works for black. If this happens, just play bishop c4, easy development, attacking f7 twice. And there's two ways to defend this for black. First up is knight to f6, which seems the most logical. If this happens, just castle. Develops another piece, everything's safe, and now we're ready for the attack. For instance, if black just continues normally with knight to d7, we can play knight g5. And now the knights and the bishop are attacking f7. e6 is probably on the cards here, but if this happens, there's a nice move, knight takes f7. For instance, if king takes, we've got rook takes d7. And if the bishop to e7 here, we can play bishop to d4. And after several more moves, rook takes b7, rook to e8, and just development. This is just another game. However, it just demonstrates how well white is doing. I think we'd all prefer to play white in this position. The material is equal, but white's got a tremendous rook and tremendous bishops and a tremendous queen. And this should be easy win for white. For instance, we can just play rook takes a7 next move, or rook takes c6, for instance. So again, after queen a5 in this variation, there's bishop c4. We just looked at knight to f6 to block. There's also knight h6. These are just some variations. You don't have to memorise this, but it's just worth knowing. Knight g5, 3 pieces attacking f7. And for instance, if e6 again to block, there's a nice sacrifice here with just bishop takes e6, pawn takes, and knight takes e6, threatening rook d8 ideas. And again, white's got a tremendous position, sacrificing more material, but this is like the art of attack. This is like a Morphy game at this moment. There's moves like knight c7 also here. So if you want to play like Morphy, this is a perfect variation for you. So that's what happens if black plays queen to b4. And I should just note, I'll copy all the moves in the description below, so you can copy those into Lee chess or Chessbase if you wish, if this video is not very clear. But we'll look at another queen move now. Let's look at queen to d8. So if black drops their queen back all the way, we'll play bishop to c4, hit f7 again. And if knight to f6, this time we're going to play knight takes f6, because if g takes f6, there's queen h5, which is a very nice move. And there's no way for black to defend this. For instance, if e6, we can play bishop takes e6. The f-pawn is pinned, and white's got a tremendous position. Black should lose this game. And after knight takes f6, if e takes f6, we'll just castle. And the point is now, look at this open d in e file. Black's in a lot of trouble. How is he going to defend the king? For instance, if bishop to d6, there's queen g4 attacking the g7 pawn. And there's no way black can castle in this position because then just comes bishop h6, threatening checkmate on g7. g6 is forced, we're attacking the rook. But instead of taking the rook straight away, white can play rook a to d1. Threatens bishop to f4. And if black plays rook e8 to move their rook away, again, we've got queen d4, attacking this d6 bishop. If bishop c7, there's a nice cheeky mate here with queen takes d8, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, bishop takes, and a rook e1. Look at this one. How nice is that? There's no way to defend rook to e8 checkmate. A delicious position. So in this variation, after queen to g4, g6 is pretty much forced. We can't castle into that as black. But then just rook 8 to d1 again. We threaten bishop to f4, and white's got a very comfortable position. So in this position, queen d8 and queen b4 are no trouble at all. So let's now look at queen to d7. This is a bit more active than queen to d8, however white's still got a great game here. So we play bishop c4, attacking f7 once again. And again, knight to f6 or e6 are the main moves for black. If e6 in this position, again, rook to d1, a nice move, gaining the open file, attacking the queen, forcing the queen to drop back, and now we can play bishop to d4. And all of a sudden, black's got a pawn up. However, they're going to really struggle to develop here. The knight can't come to f6, the bishop can't move because it's defending this g7 pawn. And black's kind of tied up. The best move I could find for black here is knight to h6. But if this happens, you can actually sacrifice with bishop takes g7. If bishop takes g7, of course, there's knight to d6, and you've won the queen. So you just got to keep on looking at these positions and look out for the tactics. So after queen d7, bishop to c4, there's also knight to f6 to defend everything again. Again, just play rook to d1, and if queen c7 to sidestep, white gains a good game here with just castling. And I've highlighted all the pieces in green here because look at the leading development white's got. For instance, if black tries to catch up in development with e6, you can play knight takes f6. And this is an easy win position for white. In this position, the only other threat really for against white's plan is to play knight to d5. But even so, there's a nice move now. We can sacrifice the exchange in this position. With bishop takes, again we're attacking f7, so if e6 to defend, there's bishop f4. Let's say queen to b6. You've got this nice move, bishop takes b7, ridiculous move. The point is, after queen takes bishop, there's knight d6 check, and a discovered attack against the queen. And after, let's say, even after bishop takes b7, if just a normal move like bishop to e7, white can take the rook on a8. So we've just looked at queen to d7, queen to d8 and queen to b4. Let's look at queen to d5. This seems like a very active move, defending f7. But again, we just gain the open file here. Rook to d1, hit the queen. Queen a5 check. We'll play c3 to block everything. And again, white's got a very nice leading development. If black goes pawn grabbing again, we gain some good play here with moves like knight to g5. Or just again, queen to f4, and we'll threaten queen c7. So in this position, it's really recommended that black develops. So let's say knight to f6. But again, though, we can play bishop to c4. And if knight to d7, there's actually a nice bishop takes f7 here, believe it or not. For instance, if king takes here, there's rook takes d7 and knight on f6 is pinned. And these are the tactics you've just got to watch out for. For instance, we'll continue king to g8, there's knight takes f6, pawn takes, and we'll just castle. And the plan for white is just to play queen to e4, queen to e6 and deliver checkmate. So let's go back a few moves. So if bishop takes f7, of course black could have played king to d8 here. But then comes knight takes f6, pawn takes, queen g4, threatening checkmate on d7. Let's say queen c7, there's bishop to f4. And the theme in these positions are that the bishops and the queen are just too strong for white. White's got tremendous leading development, and black's structure collapses in these variations very quickly. So okay, the last queen move we'll look at is queen takes b2. And again, we've seen this already, this isn't very good for black. For instance, we could play now bishop to c4. And again, if knight to f6 in this position, we just castle. And again, we've looked at this already. If queen takes c2, we can play queen f5, threaten checkmate on c8, and white's got a tremendous position already. For instance, you can also play moves like, we're also threatening, knight takes f6 for a discovered attack against this queen. Black's in disarray here. So okay, after bishop to c4, we'll look at the other move, which is just playing e6. Again, white should just castle here. After knight to f6, we can play rook a to b1. And if queen takes c2, grabbing the pawn again, knight takes f6, pawn takes, rook fc1, queen to f5, takes, and white can just simply now play rook takes b7, attacking the f7 pawn again with the bishop and the rook. Yes, black can defend, but after bishop to f4, look at white's position. This isolated pawn will be taken with ease, and black's got Irish pawns here, triple pawn structure, and the two bishops was causing havoc here for white against black. After e6 as well in this variation, again white should just castle. If knight to f6, rook a b1. There's also queen to e5 to not pawn grab, but then we can just play knight takes f6 anyway, and if queen takes, white can play moves like queen to e4. The point being, after bishop to d6, white just hoovers up the b7 pawn. In this position, black can castle safely, but after g3, queen g6, and moves like queen to d4. Again, white's got a really nice game with loads of active pieces. Attacking the bishop here and attacking the pawn. d6 defends the bishop, but then just play moves like queen to d2. And again, white's got a really good position. They've got two active bishops. The two rooks are causing disarray in black's camp. And yes, white is still actually a pawn down in this position, but should be able to claim it back very soon. I mean, black's really struggling here to develop this knight. Where's it going to go to? Because the bishop and the rook cover many squares. After bishop c4, I should also mention this variation as well, the last one I'll look at, which is just queen takes a1. And this is actually really good for white, because after king to e2, this is a bit of a trap. So yes, the queen could take the other rook if they wished. But if this happens, it's checkmate. This queen takes f7. Should deliver checkmate fairly soon. For instance, if king to d8 in this variation, you can take the bishop with check. Again, if the king decides to run, there's bishop to f4, king to b6, and queen d8 is also checkmate. And if king to d7, there's bishop to e6, king c7, queen f4, king d8, takes the bishop, king c7, queen c8 is also checkmate. So yes, d4 has many traps and advantages to it. Again, black wins a pawn, but the point of this rare opening is actually that white gains a massive lead in development. Already, after the sacrifice of a pawn, white's got 3 pieces out. Again, if black goes pawn grabbing, we can take the centre file, which is very important. And if the queen moves anywhere else, bishop c4 is one move to look out for, and also just knight g5 idea and just castling. So, to finish up, my advice to you is actually, if you get in this position, just like put it in lead chess or chess base, run the engine and just go through a few variations. I'll copy the whole PGN in the description so you can copy it. But these are just some key variations to look out for. The point is though, that after bishop to e3, white is winning the game. And whatever move black plays, you should just realise there's great attacking potential for white in this position. It's up to you just to figure it out over the board. But it's good to be safe in the knowledge that you know that you're winning this position. So yeah, this is my opening d4 trap versus the Caro Kann. Hope you enjoyed. I hope I made some sense and it was quite clear. If you did enjoy the video, please do drop a like, comment or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.